So I am with the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator. What we are is a new public-private partnership. We're an independent, nonprofit organization that was founded by the city of Los Angeles to help spur the creation of this clean technology ecosystem, particularly to help startup companies get from the garage or the laboratory into the marketplace. The organizations that were behind this, I guess it sort of started in 2007 in the mayor's office when they started looking at Los Angeles and seeing what this city had to offer in terms of economic development. They said, where are our strengths and how can we best help play to those strengths? Here in LA, we lead with, I think, the market. We're the largest market for clean technology in the country, largest market for electronic vehicles, we're the largest market for solar. We recycle more than any other region in the country. The next thing they looked at was, I think, the universities. So with UCLA, USC, Caltech, other research institutions, including NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and the other colleges in the area, the Cal States, etc. We actually graduate more people with master's degrees and higher in science, mathematics, engineering, technology focused in any other region of the country. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And I think the last thing is that this is a huge city, right, with a lot of people, and the city itself has a lot of purchasing power through its proprietary agencies, right? So the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power being obviously one of the biggest ones. We have the largest port in the Western Hemisphere here. And I think we have the largest port in North America with the second largest port in North America next door to it, between the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach. We have the airports, etc. And when you put all of that together, what you wind up having is an enormous market opportunity, an enormous pool of talent, and a lot of really good problems that need solving, which are really the things that are needed for an entrepreneurial ecosystem to grow and to thrive. So one of the ideas that came out of the folks at City Hall was that this idea of building a business incubator to help startups get to the next level. We were officially born, I guess, in about a year ago in June. We had our official launch in October of 2011. And since then we've been in a sort of a full sprint forward, trying to make this thing happen. The organizations that are most closely linked with us, of course, are the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, what I call the ghost of the Community Redevelopment Agency for Los Angeles, since they're winding down their operations. The mayor's office, of course, and Morton Lacretz, whose name will be on our permanent campus that the DWP is building, which the incubator will be the anchor tenant for. So what do we actually do? This is, I guess, probably a good question. Well, what we actually do is we help clean tech startups like Hive Lighting, Robert's company, by offering them 3 services. The first is the most tangible, it's the easiest to see, and it's office space that's just ready to go. We have a temporary location in the Arts District just down the street here. It's 3,500 square feet. We have room for anywhere from 7 to 9 clean tech companies in residence there. Now, when I say companies, I mean that could start as one person at one desk who's working to scale a new idea. That could be like Rob's company, who they came in with one person at one desk. Then I think within a few days, all of a sudden there were 3 people at one desk. Then there were 3 people at one desk, plus one of the rooms in the back that was filled up, being used to manufacture the first prototype run of their new lights. And so they've grown with us since then. But that's the first thing. So they show up with their computer, with their phone. They put it down on the desk and they're ready to go. We have copiers, we have faxes, right? We have a reception. The internet is turned on. Everything's easy. We also don't make them sign any personal guarantees. They have a 30-day in-out, no long-term leases. So when you're trying to start a company, it's really difficult for a CEO to say, okay, do I get space that's good for me right now? Do I get the space that's good for me in when I'm projected to need a year from now? But then you have to sign a 3-year lease. So you say, oh, well, maybe I just get the space that I'm going to need 3 years from now. Of course, that's a lot more expensive. So we take all of that off the table. The second thing that we offer our companies, so anyway, the space is very important. Like I said, we're in our temporary space right now. We're moving into our permanent space in a little bit, and I'll talk to you about that after. Second thing is coaching and mentoring for the executive teams for these companies. I don't know who it was who was putting together the plan for who to hire to help manage this incubator, but I think they made a really good decision. The city made us an independent nonprofit of our own. They hired folks to run it that were technology business people, not folks that were coming straight out of City Hall or from government, not just people with political connections. But Fred Walty, our executive director, has been an entrepreneur for the better part of the last 20 years, starting tech companies and helping them to build and grow. Neil Anderson, our assistant director, has been doing the same thing for about the last 15 years. As you heard in the introduction, I've been doing this for about 10 years. So none of us are actually economic development specialists. We're all people that have worked in the trenches building startups in the tech business. And so the way I've been saying it recently is what we try to do is we try to be sort of in basketball terms, sort of the sixth man on the court for all of our companies. And he can attest if we're doing a good job or not. But we really try to help them with every aspect of their business, whether it be their basic business plan, their financing strategy, their hiring plan, their go-to-market strategy. When we're in meetings and meeting people in our own networking, we try to, as best as possible, funnel business development opportunities to them. And that becomes really one of the biggest parts of our day, every day, is actually working for these companies. And the last thing that we really offer is access to our network, which is large and substantial and growing. And that includes access to capital. That includes our connections within the government of not only the city, but at the national level. Business, this economic development around technology companies and clean tech in general has gotten a lot of, and it's had a spotlight shown on it from a lot of different areas of government. In the past 2 months, I think we've had, Lisa Jackson, the administrator of the EPA, has come to visit us to do a roundtable with our companies and with folks from local government. I think Hilda Solis, who's the Secretary of Labor, was here to do much the same thing. We had a gentleman named Dr. Arun Majumdar. He's the director of ARPA-E, which is basically the government's, sort of the Department of Energy's venture capital arm, for high risk, high reward technologies that are coming out in the energy space. He was also at the time the acting Undersecretary of Energy. We had an Assistant Secretary of Energy. So for a brand new startup economic development group here in downtown LA's Arts District, because of the intense ties that we have with the Department of Water and Power, with the city government, folks that can be really, to get a CEO of a company that's brand new, like Hive, for example, at the same table talking with a member of the President's Cabinet, and then to do it again, and then to do it again, all within a period of a few months. It's just really helpful in the kind of opportunities that an entrepreneur in their own home, without access to this network, wouldn't necessarily have. I think one thing that bears saying is that network, including government and all these agencies, is particularly important when you're talking about clean technologies. In traditional high tech, like the internet or building mobile apps, it's not that important really to know, your senators or folks at the Department of Energy. You and I could sit down over a weekend in tie-dye t-shirts and Birkenstocks and drink a lot of coffee, and we could sit at our computers, we could code, we could develop an app, we could launch it onto the web, we can see if we gain some sort of traction, we can iterate, we can pivot, we can change it around. We didn't have to ask anybody's permission to bring it to the marketplace, right? We didn't have to get third-party validation that the whole thing worked before we were even able to launch it on any sort of a platform. It's a lot simpler. With clean tech, right? First of all, you have to build like an actual thing, right? You have to make something physical. Usually, you have to bend metal, right? The other thing is your customers often are governments, or they're in areas that are very, very highly regulated by government, and so it really does pay off to have those connections. Yeah, so those are basically the three services that we offer to our companies. Like I said, we were born in June, officially launched in October. Since then, we've accepted, I think, 7 companies into our portfolio. They range from companies in the energy efficiency space to companies in the transportation, particularly the EV space, electronic vehicle space, to some more, sort of further out but potential high reward advanced technologies. The first company that we accepted is a company called 350 Green, and they are owner-operators of public charging networks for electronic vehicles. When they came to us, they had 2 people, at 2 desks, and this idea of how to build and expand their network of chargers for electronic vehicles. They actually, it's pretty interesting, they build charging stations in public places where people shop. So for example, you might have read about this, they got a contract with Walgreens to put in over 1,000 EV chargers in Walgreens parking lots here in California. The idea there being that instead of going to a gas station type of place to charge your car and having to sit there for a few hours, why not have the charger in a place where you're already going to leave your car for a few hours, right? Well, they started out, like I said, it's 2 people at a couple of desks. Today, they're the #1 owner-operator of EV charging infrastructure in the country, just in a span of a few short months. Second company that we took in was very similar to 350 Green, in that they were in the electronic vehicle charging space. But even more particularly, they are in the testing and measurement business for the smart grid, so for the grid of the future. Their first product, it's a box that you hook up to an electronic vehicle charger to make sure that it's, that the vehicle and the grid are communicating with one another, that it's safe, that the power is flowing properly. And this is a product that's used not only for installers of electronic vehicles, but also in the development and research of new EV charging technologies. So they've actually, they were with us in residence for about 7 months. They recently moved out to be closer to their manufacturing base, because they're actually manufacturing their product now, and they started shipping. Talking about DWP, one of the interesting sort of examples of why this relationship with the DWP is so important is because the DWP is not only supporting the incubator, if I may, because they think it's a good economic development thing. It's because the DWP has some real problems they need solving. They need new technologies in order to make it to the next level. I mean, they were the first public utility to get 20% of their renewable portfolio of energy from, or their portfolio of energy from renewable sources. And they need to do better, right? And they need to increase that level of, that percentage of their portfolio that comes from renewables. So with Grid Test Systems, we met with the folks in the EV group at DWP, and the CEO of Grid Test presented his product, and the folks from the EV group said, I need this immediately, I'll take that one, and in fact I need to make an order for a few more because that solves a very real problem that we have already. So it's a pretty wonderful opportunity, I think, not only for DWP to be on the forefront of these new technologies as they're coming out, having these problems solved for them, but also for our companies to have a real built-in customer, and that legitimizing factor that comes with saying the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power uses our product. And if it's good enough for the LDWP, it's good enough for every utility in the country and probably every utility in the world. We have another company called Hive Lighting, which I'm not going to talk to you about anymore because I'm sure Rob will handle that. But they're in the energy efficiency space, so I'll tell you why that's more exciting. We have another company called Elio Solar. They make solar thermal integrated shades, architectural shades for buildings. So imagine outside of this window, instead of this overhang that we have, there's a metal shade structure that does very much the same thing that that one's doing, providing shade to this room, but also it captures the heat of the sun, and it's integrated into the hot water system of the building, so that it not only reduces the costs for cooling by providing shade, but it reduces the cost for heating water by using the power of the sun. That's a pretty exciting company as well. What else do we have? We have a company called 360 Energy. They make what's basically could potentially be a game-changing generator technology, based just adding substantial efficiencies to gen sets for power generation with traditional fuels. And we have a company called DB New Energy. They actually are, it's funny, they're an interesting story. They're a group of Americans who started a company and immediately went to China making battery swapping technology for fleet vehicles. So, imagine a bus pulls in, is driving around, dropping people off. It pulls into a terminal. Instead of having to wait to charge the battery that's built into the bus, they just take out the big battery, they put in a new battery. It takes about 5 minutes, and then the bus is back off and running. They went to China during the Beijing Olympics, and they delivered about 40 of these buses, and they're still in operation today in Beijing and in other places. And now they're trying to figure out a way to come back to the United States, and they think that Los Angeles is the right place to do that. So we're helping them to do that. As you see, I think by going through this list of companies, we are pretty broad in what our interpretation of clean technology is. But each one of these companies really, if their products take off, and if products like this take off, we will be reducing our dependence on foreign oil, right? We will be helping our cities be cleaner, making sure that our air is cleaner to breathe. And, in the meantime, we'll be utilizing all of the building blocks that the city of Los Angeles has to create good jobs for people that need them, not only at the highest levels, engineers and CEOs, but also for installation folks, technicians, customer service. So really all up and down the sort of chain of the types of jobs that we can create. The future for us looks pretty bright. In June of 2013, obviously with an immense amount of help from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, we expect to move into our permanent home, which is the La Kretz Innovation Campus. It's a 60,000 square foot campus that the DWP is putting together, dedicated to clean technology and to innovation in the arts district. About half of that will be the business incubator. So instead of having room for 6 to 9 startups, we'll have room for 20 to 25 startups under our roof. We'll also have light manufacturing, prototyping space, wet labs and dry labs. And I think the DWP has a bunch of different programs there as well, including the demand response demonstration lab, the nation's largest smart grid demonstration project, and their energy efficiency administration center. So, we're just excited to be a part of this this project and to be a part of this movement that's happening in the city, and to help so many exciting entrepreneurs and clean tech startups get sort of from the lab or the garage, into the marketplace as fast and efficiently as possible. That's it.
Thanks, Andy. Don't sit down yet.
I wanted to find out about the cost and also what you look for with the companies that you accept.
It's a great question. So we charge a world-class deal to our companies once they are accepted. We charge them $300 per desk per month for all of those services that you just talked about. So that's inclusive of the actual space itself, like I said, furniture, no tenant improvements, the internet, receptionists, mail services, copying, printing, faxing, whatever else they need. But then also all of these business consulting services, these networking opportunities, all of our events. We have something called a C-level leadership program where folks come in and teach them about venture capital financing or corporate governance or communications. I mean, so all of that is inclusive. $300 per month per desk. So it's a world-class deal. And the second question is, how do we choose the companies? We have basically a 6-week about process that companies go through after they apply. Sometimes it's more. I think Rob and his partner showed up at the incubator at our temporary space like the day we signed the lease on the space, and it had been a bus refurbishing depot at the time. So I mean, it didn't look like a business incubator from any standpoint that was reasonable. But they showed up and they said, "Hey, we heard the city's doing this, and we're really excited about it. We really want to talk to you." And we said, "Okay, hold on, time out. Give us a little bit of time to think about this and to actually put together our offering, and we'll get back to you." And they said, "Okay, great. So we'll get back to you next week." And so they came back, basically the next week, and they said, "Hey, we're really excited about this." We said, "Okay, great. Well, here's the application. Please fill out the application, and then we'll take you through the process." 2 days later, we had an application, and maybe a month or two after that, we were done.
So I want to know, is it like the Shark Tank thing where they come on the carpet in front of you and you critique their business plan?
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, so that's a part of it. So to go more in depth with the process, but so it starts with a basic conversation like we're having right now. You might tell me that you have a company and this is what you do. I would direct you toward our website, which explains a little more of the process. You fill out an application. In this application, there are like 4 or 5 questions on there that are, it's not rocket science here, but there are 4 or 5 questions that we believe really help us get to the heart of your, the problem that you're solving and the problems that you might be having in getting to market. After we take that, including business plans, etc., we look at it with our internal team, okay, and we talk about it. Then we socialize it with our network of mentors and advisors. We're not asking them to give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down on a company. We're asking them to give us a unique perspective on the company and on the marketplace, or on the technology. Because like I don't have a background in, I'm not an engineer myself, right? So we might take, for example, with a Elo Solar is a fine example, the company that makes the shades. We took their application materials, we sent it to one of the leading green architects in Southern California, and we said, is this something that you would actually use? What are the pros? What are the cons? What would it, how would this product need to be delivered in order for it to be useful to you? We sent it to a energy efficiency consultant who goes into big building projects and helps them retrofit for energy efficiency. And we said, what do you think of this? How would this work for you? We took it to a professor at one of the universities and said, can you evaluate their technology and tell me, if this is new and exciting and interesting, or if this is, something else that's been done, or if there are any significant problems. Then we compile a list of questions from all of that. We send it back to the company. They have some time to look at it, so it's not, they're not necessarily on the hot seat right, at that moment. We're not trying to stump anybody. We really want them to think about these things. And then we set up another meeting. And at that meeting, we sit around a big conference table, and the company is basically on one side, and our crew is on the other side, and we really talk through all of these issues. Sometimes at that point, we realize that it's not a good strategic fit for us, or that maybe there are other opportunities that they should pursue that don't have to do with Incubator or whatever. But I think that meeting is always productive, whether we accept the company or not. After that, we look at their financials to make sure they can, that they're on a firm financial footing. They can afford to pay us the measly $300 per desk per month that we're going to charge them. We check their references. And if all that pans out, then we may offer them a spot in the